Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and when it comes to discussing the Labour Party and Brexit these days, often feels like a tug of war between those who are too cautious and those who are too reckless. But the weekend saw an article that actually really surprised me. A Brexit stance from Labour I did not expect. They're going to open talks with the EU over the touring visas problem. Fairly big, surely a bigger story than many people think. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So yeah, came as a bit of a surprise, this one. One massive issue for Labour is, on the one hand, it is a pro-European party with an overwhelmingly pro-European membership, supporters, MPs, all largely pro-European. No brainer that it's against Brexit. But on the other hand, people hate that Brexit is still overshadowing everything. Yes. So why didn't they just vote for more parties that were going to let us vote to just drop the whole thing? Well, they thought that leaving the EU would get it done and we could focus on other problems. They didn't know that it would just drag on forever. So how to attack Brexit, as well as work on policies for reversing it, without explicitly doing so and being accused of wanting to turn back the clock, refight old battles, open up this divisive campaign all over again, that sort of thing, drag the whole thing out for more years. Well, this latest plan is a pretty good one. Labour are going to engage with the EU Commission directly to come up with an agreement that will allow musicians to continue to tour EU countries. And it sounds small and it sounds unlikely, but handled correctly could be a very powerful political device here. Because the thing is, Labour can talk to the EU as much as it likes, but it can't actually implement anything that's agreed. So why not just promise to engage with the EU for agreements like this as part of an election campaign? Well, this is a powerful move for a number of reasons. Like, musicians are, of course, popular, and they can communicate to a lot of the public. A lot of the population listen to them. And the musicians are very clear to that population that Brexit is doing a lot of damage to their industry. If Labour come up with a plan, and remember, it shouldn't be difficult. The EU were prepared to offer visa-free touring. Our government just turned it down. It was there. It was on offer. Part of the Brexit deal could have been. The UK government, no. So if a plan emerges that's all perfectly reasonable, the government would be under a lot of pressure to engage with it. They'd have two choices. If they still refuse, they will be seen as pursuing a Brexit ideology over practical benefits. An ideology that strikes no chord with the general public. There's an awful lot of poisonous aspects to Brexit that do strike a chord with the public. But this isn't one of them. And the music industry will not be shy about pointing this out. If the government do implement the deal, if they go, okay, yeah, we can't really argue against this, then what are they doing? They're then showing the public that Labour succeeded in getting a deal for our performers where they failed. Because the government say they're trying to do talks on this. Labour will have succeeded where they failed. Absolute poison for a general election coming up. And more than that, they'll be showing what can be achieved when you engage in good faith as opposed to picking pointless fights and throwing insults around. Handled right, this is powerful stuff. It may even provoke a response from the government. This is also no bad thing as far as I'm concerned. It can set the Conservatives and Labour in direct opposition over a Brexit issue. What we need more of is for people to see how Labour and the Conservatives are fundamentally different. And as Brexit issues go, this is a good one. Like, pro-Europeans in the country desperately want political parties to call out the damage of Brexit and make explicit policies to reverse it. So they're just going to see a main opposition party doing just that, albeit in a narrow area of our economy, obviously important for those within it. But for those who still don't want to be involved with Brexit battles, and there's a lot of swing voters in that group, it represents Labour just trying to get a deal to help our music industry. What's there to attack on that? What's the harm in that? And if Labour want to have talks with the EU to try and get a good mutually beneficial deal, what's the problem? Isn't that what the government should be doing? And if Labour agree a deal with the EU that means visa-free touring and there is no cost that was ever seen as unacceptable to even Brexit supporters, how will the government be able to argue against it? And the article in The Independent cited the Society of Musicians as saying how 43% of musicians who were in the habit of touring, so we're not talking about just of all musicians in this country, specifically those who are in the habit of touring around the EU, only 43% of them were planning to do so in the future. And also how 42% of them would consider just moving out of the UK altogether in order to pursue their careers. See, this is the problem with banning freedom of movement, of course. You create a drain of talent away from Britain. Because after all, what's best for your career? Being tied to Britain or being able to work across the whole of Europe with the exception of Britain? Bit of a no-brainer, really. And it's not just music where this logic applies. We'll see a drain from scientific and other academic research as well, we know that. So Alison McGovern, who's Labour's shadow culture minister, said, poisonous red tape is holding back creative people from working across Europe and going on tour. This is one of the finest British exports and that's why we've got to do more. Everybody is fed up now of waiting for the Tories to figure this out. They haven't negotiated anything new and that's why we want to see a new additional agreement. And there's a lot of nuance in that simple statement. Break a few bits down, shall we? First, poisonous red tape. Now, one of the main Brexit arguments was that it would reduce red tape. But it's not, it's increased it. And not just for musicians, traders, anything, anyone. For us, if you want to send a box of biscuits to the continent to someone. It's very complicated. So this is pointing out that Brexit has brought more red tape. We now need to associate Brexit with red tape. Should be easy. There's lots of it. So it turns a Brexit argument on its head. Oh, you don't like red tape? Red tape's bad, is it? Oh, great. So why don't we do something to reduce it then if it's so bad? Can't be any objections to that, can there? Next, this thing about being one of our finest British exports. Plugging the patriotism button in a less childish way than simply sitting in front of a battery of flags. Pointing out that this nonsense is hurting a much-loved British icon. I mean, some of our musicians are world famous, quite a lot of them. The world famous musicians of the future are less likely to be British because the up-and-comings can't establish themselves on the international scene anymore. Third, the comment about everybody is now fed up of waiting for the Tories to figure this out. I like this one best of all. This is a very powerful line when you think about it. Why were Labour so quiet about Brexit last year and most of this year? I saw an interview with David Lammy, the Shadow Justice Minister, last year. And he talked about Brexit in this interview and how the front bench were deliberately keeping quiet, but that the time would come. In other words, even a year ago, there was a deliberate plan, a strategy of waiting for the right time. And I've said throughout this, may not be quite the right strategy, may not be quite the right timing. I've got various views on that. But there was a plan. And the plan was not just to never talk about Brexit. And it could be that what they needed to do was give the Conservatives enough time to deal with it themselves. Instead of jumping straight in and going, oh, Brexit's happened. Oh, why is it such a mess straight away? It's like, come on, give them a chance, mate. So they're now going, right, we gave you a chance. We gave you all of last year to negotiate the deal. The deals are yours. And now we've given you this year to iron out the wrinkles. And you're not getting anything. In fact, in the whole of this year, what they're basically saying here, what Alison McGovern is saying is, in the whole of this year so far, you haven't actually agreed anything with the EU, have you? You've actually agreed nothing. What's going on? We're going to be here forever. Labour would feel that they could start taking charge at this point, presumably. Brexit is a mess, undeniably so. But it's still politically very sensitive. But it is a mess. Even proponents of it can't dispute that. They only dispute whose fault it is. And this line for me was the most hopeful of the lot. It's the classic line for any opposition wanting to be the government in waiting, variations on it. The current government has no idea what it's doing. Look, we've got all these problems and it's doing nothing about it. We gave them all this time, they've done nothing. It can't solve our problems. We have a plan to deal with these problems, so vote us into power. But this is where Labour are potentially going one better. Because they're not just promising to do better when they're in government. People may go, well, we don't know you'll do any better. What they're basically saying is, we haven't got any more time to mess about. We can't wait for an election. Yes, they may trigger an election very soon. They may not trigger it until 2024. We haven't got that much time. So we're just going to do what the actual government should be doing while we're still in opposition. We're going to do their job for them. And like I said, if Labour can play this right, and that's a big old if, but if they can present this to the public in this way, Very powerful device. And it can be replicated as well. You know, we could have other shadow ministers holding talks with the EU Commission on a range of bilateral agreements potentially. You know, that would have to come later, of course. Labour are clear about not wanting to mess about renegotiating the Brexit deals we already have, which is just as well because they're not up for renegotiation. This is what I've tried to explain to people. But what they want to do is to add to them. And this agreement should be quite straightforward. Like I say, the EU offered it to us last year. We turned it down for no adequately explored reason. But in the meantime, Labour is sending 3 shadow ministers to talk with the Commission soon, as well as unions in Europe. You know, and I hope they can make this a big political issue. I really do. I wouldn't at all mind seeing the government trapped on this. You know, like I say, they could face being caught between refusing a reasonable agreement that no one can really point out any downsides to, you know, that will annoy very influential British celebrities if they don't, or implementing an improvement to Brexit, you know, therefore not copying for the ire of musicians, but then they have to implement something that Labour's done for them when Labour did their job for them. Oh, what's that? Labour doing the job of government? Okay, maybe we should just make them the government. Tricky. And if the Conservatives do try and call a general election this autumn, and although I'm not saying that's likely, they have geared up this summer to put themselves in a position to do so. So it's not impossible. Could create a bit of a flashpoint. I don't mind seeing that. The government know that this is politically sensitive. It's why they lied about securing visa-free touring in 19 EU member states. It was a lie. Complete lie. You can't. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.